My fiancée fell in love with a broke student she's been sponsoring. She was determined to break off our engagement, no matter the cost. She turned a deaf ear to the pleas of family and friends. My father's blood pressure skyrocketed in fury, and my mother nearly collapsed and had to be hospitalized. Overnight, my family became the laughingstock of high society. But no one expected that my family would convene that very day to discuss countermeasures. My mother took out her phone. How about arranging a new alliance marriage for you? With Haishi's reigning beauty to him, why father spoke coldly. Cancel the cooperation. Cut off the billion-yuan lifeline we've been providing her family. A cold smile touched my lips. How about letting me handle both of those personally? 3 months later, to announce my alliance marriage with Haishi's reigning beauty, I hosted a grand banquet. The guests were all nobility and elites, many of them buddies I'd grown up with. Buried in work these past years, I'd rarely attended such events and had drifted apart from old friends. Seizing the opportunity, I caught up with long-lost friends. They all sighed over my past relationship with Vivian Shaw, pitying me. I smiled with feigned acceptance. It's all in the past. I'm happy she found her own happiness. My friends called me foolish, urging me not to be so understanding. But I knew my father was about to sever all financial support to the Shaws. Right now, I only needed to project magnanimity. Suddenly, the banquet hall doors swung open. Silhouetted against the harsh light was a familiar figure. My gaze sharpened. It was my ex-fiancée, Vivian Shaw, and her current beau. An awkward silence fell. People murmured awkward condolences to me. Whispers rippled through the crowd. What's she doing here? The nerve that I asked at the social climber beside her. He's nowhere near Mr. Grant. I waved a hand, signaling my friends I was fine. Then, with a practiced smile, I walked up to Vivian Shaw. I extended my hand politely. Welcome, Miss Shaw. My apologies for the oversight in not arranging your transportation. Vivian hesitated, then shook my hand. I addressed the room magnanimously. This is Ms. Shaw of the Shaw Group, whom I believe you all know. And beside her is her boyfriend, Damian Vance, a student she once sponsored. For a moment, Vivian couldn't tell if I was genuinely gracious or deliberately humiliating her. After brief, strained greetings, she led Damian to an empty table in the corner. I approached with my entourage. Ms. Shaw, you seem a bit tense tonight. These are all friends. Join us for a few drinks. It was clear Vivian wanted to refuse. But my friends offered no escape. They chimed in, Ms. Shaw, you wouldn't refuse Mr. Grant this small courtesy, would you? The only reason Vivian attended tonight was because, in the 2 years since I took the helm of Grant Group, it had rapidly become Haishi's most formidable conglomerate, while the Shaws teetered on the brink. Were it not for my father's support over the years, extended solely for the sake of the alliance marriage, the Shaw Group would have collapsed long ago. Just last year, the Shaws faced a liquidity crisis. Without my father's billion-yuan bailout, there would be no Shaw Group today. The Shaw's greatest fear now was my father withdrawing funding after Vivian broke off our engagement. Though my father hadn't acted in 3 months, panic had long since gripped the Shaw Group. Many senior Shaw employees had already defected to Grant Group. Vivian came tonight partly to gauge my stance, partly to mend fences with Grant Group. This drink, she couldn't refuse. As Vivian downed drink after drink, Damian's expression beside her visibly darkened. I raised my glass towards Damian. Vivian quickly grabbed his arm. Damian, the Shaws owe everything to the Grants. Have a drink with Mr. Grant. Damian, coming from poverty, understood nothing of these business courtesies. Consumed by his own resentment, he shook off Vivian's hand and stormed out. Vivian apologized profusely. Mr. Grant, please forgive Damian. He hasn't been feeling well lately. One of my buddies spoke up indignantly. That Damian Vance has some nerve, daring to refuse a toast from Mr. Grant. That I waved a dismissive hand, smiling affably. Let it go. It's normal for a kid not to know better. Grant Group has a reputation. It wouldn't do for me, Mr. Grant, to make a fuss over such a trifle. Vivian bowed repeatedly, gratitude and apology in her eyes, then hurried after him. I never much enjoyed these events. After settling my friends, I slipped out to the rear garden for some air. Coincidentally, I came upon Vivian trying to placate Damian. She pleaded helplessly, Damian, we can't afford to cross the Grants. Please, try to understand my position. The newly minted social climber retorted arrogantly, "Why should the mighty Shaw group fear some Grant family? We're better off without them." I chuckled softly, amused by his arrogance and profound ignorance. It was true the Shaws had a longer history than the Grants. One could say the Shaw lineage spanned 3 times that of my family. The Grant Empire was built from scratch by my father's generation. Perhaps through luck or skill, Grant Group now held overwhelming power in Highshire. But under Vivian's father, mismanagement and an archaic structure had hollowed out the Shaws, leaving only the facade of their former reputation. In reality, it was already an empty shell. Mr. Shaw had initially planned to hand over the failing Shaw Group for me to manage after the marriage. That prospect was now gone. As it stood, they were barely surviving day by day. If my father withdrew funding, the Shaws wouldn't just collapse. They'd be buried under mountains of debt. Spotting me, Vivian flustered. "Mr. Grant, please don't mind him. Damien meant no harm." It felt strange hearing my ex-fiancé address me so formally as Mr. Grant while defending another man. But none of that mattered to me now. I offered false comfort instead. "Damien is new to the business world. Give him time to adjust." Vivian looked surprised. Damien, seething with resentment, shouted at me, "Vincent Grant, stop pretending to be the good guy." I know you still pine for Vivian, but she only loves me now. Without waiting for a reply, he stormed out of the banquet hall. I shrugged at Vivian with feigned helplessness. Kids are certainly more lively than us corporate types. Almost charming. Vivian relaxed slightly, attempting banter. "Mr. Grant, you're no ordinary corporate type. You're the quintessential domineering CEO." I raised an eyebrow. So Ms. Shaw holds me in rather high regard. Vivian offered a bitter smile. I was the one who didn't appreciate what I had. "How have you been lately?" I smiled at her with a gentleness reminiscent of the past. I'd say considerably happier than you are." Inside, the host's voice rang out. I glanced at Vivian. "The main event is starting. Shall we?" Tonight was about announcing my own joyous news. I wouldn't let Vivian Shaw delay it. Walking back with her, a faint smile touched my lips. The real show is about to begin. I stood center stage as Highshe's reigning beauty, Genevieve Harrison, descended the grand staircase in an exquisite haute couture gown. She joined me on stage, gracefully slipping her arm through mine. I gazed at her with profound affection, deeper than anything I'd ever felt for Vivian Shaw. Giving her hand a reassuring pat, I turned to the guests. "Allow me to introduce my fiancée, Genevieve Harrison." Genevieve smiled, a hint of shyness in her eyes, and waved. "I hope I can count on your kindness in the future." Applause erupted. Murmurs followed, far superior to that Vivian Shaw. Vivian never knew her luck. Mr. Grant could have anyone. He was blind before. I cleared my throat. "Wedding invitations will follow shortly. We sincerely hope you can join us." Amidst the celebratory noise, my eyes found Vivian in the crowd. Her face had drained of color, reeling as if struck. As expected, before I even reached home, my phone buzzed with a message from Vivian Shaw. "Lin Fong, I didn't expect you to marry so soon. Wishing you happiness." Calmly adjusting my glasses, I typed my prepared response. "I won't be there to look after you anymore. Take good care of yourself. Remember to use a heating pad for your back when it's damp, and keep your migraine meds in the nightstand." I sent the pre-written lines to Vivian. She didn't reply for a long time. Perhaps she was reminiscing about the care I once lavished on her. I paid it no further mind. After a shower, I went to bed early. The next morning, my screen displayed a message Vivian had sent late at night. "I was the one who wronged you back then. If I had another chance, I would marry you properly. But it's too late for words now." I stretched languidly. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Let the past be past. Since we can't be husband and wife after all these years, we can at least be friends, right? Vivian, seemingly sleepless, replied almost instantly. Yes. We're still good friends. Always." I shook my head. Vivian Shaw was so easily deceived. No wonder a Damien Vance could lead her around by the nose. It seemed my past sincerity towards her had been my mistake. A woman like her would follow whoever whispered the sweetest lies. Setting my phone aside, I looked at Genevieve Harrison, still asleep beside me. A profound sense of peace washed over me. In both family background and beauty, she eclipsed Vivian Shaw 100-fold. Yet she possessed a simplicity and kindness Vivian never had. Though we'd only known each other for 3 months, being with Genevieve felt deeply intimate and effortless. Perhaps this was what finding the right person felt like. I heard that after the banquet, Damien had a massive fight with Vivian, insisting she was still hung up on me. While Vivian's heart might have once belonged entirely to him, his tantrum following my engagement announcement was bound to make her thoughts drift back to me. After all, I'd always chased after Vivian in the past. She probably clung to the naive belief that I'd always be there if she looked back. Faced with my sudden engagement and the petulant boy before her, how could Vivian not feel regret? 2 days later, as I worked through files in my office, my secretary entered abruptly. "Mr. Grant, Vivian Shaw is here." I smiled faintly. "A guest is a guest. Show her in." Vivian entered, visibly ill at ease. "Am I disturbing you?" Closing the file, I replied smoothly, "Not at all. Just finished. I'll take you to that restaurant you love." Surprise flickered across Vivian's face. I feigned an awkward scratch of my head. "Sorry, force of habit. Forgot you have a new boyfriend now." Vivian quickly accepted. "It's fine that I have time. Just old friends catching up." Lowering my head to adjust my glasses, I let my smile fade. Of course I knew she'd agree. After Vivian broke off our engagement, she had a huge fight with her family. She defied her entire family to be with Damien Vance. But the Shaws knew exactly what crisis this would bring upon their company. As the spoiled only child, Vivian faced no real consequences from her doting parents. Damien, however, wasn't so fortunate. The elder Shaws blamed everything on him, accusing him of scheming to seduce Vivian and leading her astray. They declared he would get no shares in Shaw Group, not even a job within the company. To outsiders, he was a kept man who'd landed a sugar mama, but only he knew the misery of his existence. He could have leveraged his talent into a promising career at a reputable firm. Now, no company in Highshire would hire him, wary of crossing Grant Group. Reduced to a parasite, he depended entirely on Vivian for survival. If Vivian left him, he'd have nothing. His constant anxiety and paranoia were understandable, given his precarious position. His mistake was drowning his sorrows in alcohol and seeking solace with escorts. Vivian seemed blissfully unaware. Her mind was solely occupied with currying favor with me. Watching her expectant face, I thought, what a fool. Thank God I never married her. Though my father ordered the funding withdrawal from the Shaws, he granted me full control over its execution at my request. I was merely biding my time for the perfect moment. That moment was fast approaching. Once Vivian received the incriminating photos of Damien, I would cite the scandal as justification for cutting off the Shaws. I hoped she wouldn't resent me for my ruthlessness. After all, she was the one who betrayed me, nearly sent my father into a hypertensive crisis, and almost hospitalized my mother. This was simply an eye for an eye. Finishing my work, I stretched slowly. My gaze fell on Vivian, still waiting patiently on the sofa. She looked up from her phone. "Finished?" I nodded. Her tone was soft, almost tender. "You work so hard. I never realized how demanding your days were. I have to say that seeing you focused like that was rather attractive." I smiled bitterly. In the past, I'd always tidy myself before seeing her, hiding any trace of fatigue, and carve out every possible minute to be with her. Yet I never received an ounce of her consideration in return. Now, trying to win me over, she'd suddenly become gentle and understanding. She would never know that during those 2 hours she waited, I was finalizing the termination of Grant Group's ties with the Shaws. As I put on my coat, Vivian sprang up eagerly. "Ready to go?" I nodded, signaling my driver. Silence, thick and unsettling, filled the car during the drive. The jarring ring of Vivian's phone finally shattered the quiet. She instinctively moved to decline the call. I stopped her. "We have a way to go. Take it." Puzzled, she nodded and answered. "Hello." Her expression shifted instantly to panic as she listened. "She knows about Damien." Hanging up, she frantically dialed Damien's number again and again, getting only voicemail. She gripped her phone, knuckles white, brow furrowed. Feigning concern, I asked, "Is something wrong?" She seemed to remember my presence. Forcing composure, she said, "Vincent, I can't make dinner tonight. Rain checked out. I'll treat you next time." I smiled gently. "Of course. Go handle it." "Need a ride?" "No," she refused hastily. Just drop me off here. I'll grab a cab. I said nothing more, nodding to the driver to pull over. Through the rearview mirror, I watched her standing on the curb, still desperately dialing. Her frantic expression told me Damien still wasn't answering. I called my subordinate. Make sure this blows up. I want it on the news tonight. Deliver the Shaw Group withdrawal documents first thing tomorrow morning. With Grant Group's reach, the scandal would be citywide gossip within the hour. By then, even if Damien Vance groveled at my feet, it would be too late. The driver inquired cautiously, "Where to now, Mr. Grant?" I looked out the window. "Pick up Genevieve." Truthfully, I'd never intended to have dinner with Vivian Shaw. I'd orchestrated everything before her arrival, knowing precisely when, 6:30 p.m., she'd learn of Damien's betrayal. The restaurant reservation was always meant for Genevieve and me. Vivian had simply walked into the crosshairs. I wanted to witness her reaction firsthand. As we entered Genevieve Harrison's neighborhood, I spotted her skipping towards the car. She slid in, took my hand, and kissed my cheek. "Thank you for making time for dinner, especially when you're so busy." I was taken aback. What Vivian had taken for granted, this woman, superior in every way, treated as a gift. It must come down to breeding, I thought. Spoiled from birth, Vivian had been entitled, believing the world revolved around her. I ruffled Genevieve's hair. "Sorry I haven't been around much. Once this busy period passes, how about a trip abroad?" Her eyes lit up. Yes, Maldives. Perhaps this was what a healthy relationship looked like. Mutual consideration and genuine emotional support. The more time I spent with Genevieve, the more I realized how little Vivian Shaw had deserved my devotion. At the restaurant, I texted my driver. "Check on Vivian Shaw's situation." Soon, a video arrived from him. It showed Vivian Shaw kneeling outside the Shaw mansion gates. Her parents emerged after a long delay. Mr. Shaw launched into a tirade. "This is your mother's and my fault for spoiling you rotten. Look at the trash you brought home. Our ties with the Grants were already hanging by a thread because of you. Now, with this Damien Vance scandal, Shaw Group stock is plummeting. If Grant Group withdraws funding, our shares will crash. The company will go bankrupt overnight. Did you think your cushy life would last forever? You threw away a good life for a troublemaking gigolo." His anger mounting, he slapped. "Vivian, get that bastard Damien back here now." Sobbing uncontrollably, Vivian gasped, "Dad, I can't reach him." This only enraged Mr. Shaw further. "He dares do this and then hide. Where's his backbone now?" Vivian had no answer, only the futile tapping of her phone screen. As I finished watching, Vivian called. "Vincent, have you seen the news? Please, help me. Help the Shaws." In the past, her tears would have melted my resolve. But times had changed. I felt nothing for her, and I had engineered this very crisis. Glancing at Genevieve's innocent face across the table, I replied coolly, "I'm sorry, I can't help you. I have to consider Grant Group's future." Vivian choked back sobs. "I know I was wrong. Vincent, I'll do anything you want. I'll break up with Damien tomorrow. Please." My voice remained icy. "I'm having dinner with my girlfriend. The withdrawal documents will be delivered promptly tomorrow. This is my private time. I advise you, Miss Shaw, to cease harassing me." I thought that was the end of it. Yet, arriving at my office building the next morning, I found Vivian Shaw waiting, desperation etched on her face. She rushed over as I stepped out, grabbing my arm. I shook her off. "Miss Shaw, maintain some decorum in public. Say what you need to say upstairs." Relieved by my concession, she followed timidly. Inside my office, she dropped to her knees with a thud. I didn't even look directly at her. "What is this, Miss Shaw?" An attempt at coercion. She shook her head frantically. "No, Vincent, I'm begging for your forgiveness." A cold smile touched my lips as I sat on the sofa, looking down at her. "You weren't so humble when you broke our engagement. Only now that you need me do you come crawling back." She slapped her own face repeatedly. "I didn't appreciate you. I was ungrateful. It was all my fault. I'll do anything for you now. Anything." I gave a derisive laugh. "That won't be necessary, Miss Shaw. Leave. I have a girlfriend now. Please go." When she remained frozen on the floor, I summoned security to remove her. For days after, Vivian appeared at my office entrance like clockwork. I met her presence with nothing but a cold stare. The Shaw Group returned the initial withdrawal documents and signed. I knew they were angling for the 5 million yuan penalty fee. Days later, I sent new documents. A binding withdrawal agreement with a forced breach penalty clause, accompanied by a check for 5 million yuan. This time, the Shahs had no choice but to accept reality. It changed nothing. Shah Group had a gaping hole of hundreds of millions. A few million was a drop in the bucket. Vivian faced scorn throughout elite circles, some from my friends defending me, others currying favor with Grant Group. Regardless, no one would lift a finger to help the Shahs now. Learning of Vivian's pleas to me, a furious Damien, ignoring the Shah's condemnation, confronted her. He raged, demanding she stop her delusions about me and marry him to start a family. True to form, Vivian refused. But breaking up with him now would publicly confirm his infidelity, making the Shahs and Vivian the city's biggest joke. Cornered, Vivian reluctantly agreed. Months later, I learned Vivian Shah and Damien Vance had registered their marriage. The woman who craved romance received no proposal and had no wedding. I discovered Damien, clinging to the delusion that a dying camel is still bigger than a horse, knew no other elite woman would have him if he lost Vivian. So he resorted to a despicable trick. While Vivian was depressed and drunk, he took advantage of her, deliberately getting her pregnant. Frail since childhood, Vivian faced the prospect of permanent infertility if she terminated the pregnancy. Trapped, she married him. But Damien failed to grasp reality. The dying camel adage was mere TV drama fantasy. The reality was that Shah Group's collapse meant crushing debt. Banks would seize everything, and debt collectors would hound them into hiding. Even without the child, Mr. Shah would likely have pressured Damien into marrying Vivian to salvage some shred of dignity. Yet the delusional Damien Vance preened, convinced he'd finally infiltrated high society. He squandered the money Vivian had given him on revelry, lavishing it on escorts. He spiraled downward, shedding all restraint. He didn't realize that once the money ran out, Vivian would have nothing left to give. Ironically, he was now wealthier than the crumbling Shah Empire. That money could have secured a comfortable future for him, Vivian, and their child. Instead, he spent it on luxury cars and villas for his mistresses. I sighed. Utter ignorance was truly self-destructive. Months later, Genevieve Harrison and I had our wedding as planned. Vivian Shaw attended, heavily pregnant. She sat in the back corner, silently watching the entire ceremony. Briefly, I caught sight of her red-rimmed eyes, glistening with unshed tears. During the toast, I approached her calmly. "Long time no see. This toast is for you. If not for your decisive rejection back then, I might never have found the happiness I have today with such a wonderful woman as Genevieve." Tears streamed down Vivian's cheeks. Happy wedding. Ravaged by events and pregnancy's toll, Vivian looked aged beyond her years, worn and carelessly dressed, a stark contrast to her former self. Seeing her like this, I reflected on fate's cruel turns, one misstep leading inexorably to ruin. After the wedding, I took Genevieve on our honeymoon to the Maldives, as she'd wished. Coincidentally, we spotted Damien Vance at the airport upon arrival. The woman clinging to him wasn't Vivian. Enraged, Damien swung a fist towards me. "Vincent Grant can't shake you. Can I following me now?" I caught his arm effortlessly. "Hardly. I don't have the time. Try not to ruin my wife's and my honeymoon." The woman tugged Damien's sleeve. With a final glare, he lowered his fist and stalked off. Thankfully, Damien didn't reappear during our trip. Genevieve and I visited 11 countries, a blissfully extended honeymoon. We returned home 3 months later. My parents had prepared a lavish welcome feast, waiting eagerly at the gate. Seeing Genevieve and me emerge, my mother beamed, while my father rushed to take Genevieve's bags. Their adoration for their daughter-in-law was palpable. At dinner, my mother piled food onto Genevieve's plate until it resembled a small mountain. Teasingly, I rescued Genevieve. "Mom, with a daughter-in-law like this, have you forgotten you still have a son?" Laughter filled the room. My mother looked fondly at Genevieve. "Genevieve, I've always wanted a daughter. From now on, this is your home. I'll treat you as my own. If this rascal ever mistreats you, I'll be the first to stand against him." Later, amid conversation, I learned my father had known Genevieve's father for years. They served together in the army, best comrades who'd vowed then to become family through their children's marriage. Fate, through Vivian's betrayal, had inadvertently fulfilled their old pact. After a few days settling in, I met up with my buddies. Over dinner, they shared news. Vivian had given birth to a daughter. Damien was furious it wasn't a son, cruelly calling Vivian a haggard failure who couldn't bear a boy. With Shaw Group teetering on bankruptcy's edge, collapse seemed imminent. Vivian had sunk into severe postpartum depression. Far from caring, Damien hounded her daily for money. Money Vivian no longer had. She couldn't even afford a postpartum nanny. Time seemed to warp. I recalled Vivian's eyes shining as she asked if I wanted a son or daughter. I'd said a daughter. Watching her grow would feel like reliving Vivian's childhood. Now Vivian had a daughter, utterly disconnected from me, subjected to her father's scorn. It stirred nothing within me. If anything, I saw it as the consequence of her own choices. But Vivian herself must have been consumed by regret. Had she not broken our engagement, Shaw Group might be thriving under Grant Group's support. She could have been resting in a luxury postnatal center, cherished by my family. She knew this, yet it remained the path she chose. But Vivian never suspected the truth. I'd never intended to marry her in the first place. I remembered when Grant Group was fledgling and the Shaws were at their peak. Old Mr. Shaw, ruthless, had relentlessly targeted my self-made father. He nearly destroyed Grant Group several times over. Only my father's business acumen saved us. By my 20th year, Grant Group was finally gaining ground. Then I fell for Vivian Shaw. Her father despised me, calling me a shortcut-seeking opportunist, rotten fruit from a crooked tree. From that moment, I vowed to bring down the Shaw empire. For years, the right opportunity eluded me, until Vivian sponsored that poor underclassman, Damien Vance. It was our high school centennial. We were invited back as distinguished alumni. Vivian and I encountered Damien, a senior, bullied by older boys in a corner, wearing threadbare, ill-fitting uniform. Learning he was an orphan raised by grandparents, humble yet academically brilliant, I felt sympathy. I decided to sponsor his education, intending to bring him into Grant Group. Vivian, craving the spotlight, insisted she would fund him. Spoiled by her patronage, Damien forgot his roots and schemed to seduce Vivian. Young but not naive, I saw their game clearly, choosing silence. For years, I feigned ignorance while subtly encouraging it. Damien Vance became my unwitting pawn. The outcome unfolded as planned, even surpassing my expectations. 6 months passed in the blink of an eye. Vivian Shaw, her postpartum depression untreated, descended into madness. Damien, disgusted by her, had her committed to a psychiatric facility. Shaw Group declared bankruptcy. Crushed by insurmountable debt, Mr. and Mrs. Shaw jumped to their deaths. Only then did Damien grasp his monumental folly. He sought redemption through honest work. But Grant Group's influence was nationwide. No one would hire Damien Vance. He washed dishes in a diner for a while. Accustomed to luxury, he couldn't endure the hardship. Soon after, he walked into the sea. They found his body days later, grotesquely bloated. When police entered his home, they found his infant daughter, cold, stiff, starved to death. Later, I visited Vivian at the asylum. Each time, she'd rush at me, weeping, "Vincent, you came to where's our baby?" That I remained silent before her ravings. Her tears would turn to manic laughter. "Vincent, you're taking me home, right? I'll pack right now." I shook my head, ignoring her. Out of pity, I covered her asylum fees and committed to funding her indefinite care. A week later, the asylum called. Vivian had slipped past nurses, climbed to the roof, and jumped. She'd left a letter for me. It spoke of her lifetime of regret towards me and a vow to love me properly in another life. I cut the nurse off. Just throw the letter away. There may be no next life. And if there is, I don't want to meet Vivian Shaw again. Hanging up, I walked to the kitchen and wrapped my arms tightly around Genevieve as she cooked. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. Tired from reading files, I shook my head, burying my face in her hair. "Genevieve, meeting you in this life has been my greatest fortune. In the next life, and the one after, I want to marry you." She turned, held me close, rose on her toes, and kissed my forehead. Yes, life is an unsolvable multiple-choice question. Every step you take counts. In this life, I was fortunate. I met Genevieve Harrison,